lot more to my story. I don't like it. So, alright, like you said, my name's Kevin. I am an addict. So I am a lot more than just an addict though. So I don't like to end it there. I do introduce myself that way because that's what I was taught to do in a lot of rooms, is help save my life. But there's a whole lot more to my story than just being an addict. I'll give you a little bit of my history. I don't want to get stuck on the using part, because we all know how to use. But I want to offer identification too. I also wanted to show you the progression of the disease of addiction, because it is incurable and it is deadly. So if you guys do find a cure, fucking let me know. For real though, like we'll bottle it up. I'll probably try to snort it, but that's why there isn't a cure for it. But we do what we can in here. And I'm gonna give you some of my childhood, because that's what led into my addiction. That's what fuels my addiction. I don't know if yours is the same, similar, or anything like that. So, like I said, I'll give you a little bit of the using, and then we'll get into recovery. That's the good shit. So, my recovery also consists of like an ass load of relapses in there too, and seeing if I can figure out how to use successfully. I think most of my recovery has been me trying to figure out how you guys could teach me to use successfully, and it is yet to work. So, and at some point, I just gotta quit. I just gotta stop fucking trying. So, because it just doesn't work. It almost killed me this last go round. So, alright. So, I was born in Michigan. So, both my parents are drug addicts. So, full blown, not good. My mom also suffered from severe and persistent mental illness, schizophrenia. So, she was in and out of psych wards my whole life. That was always the challenge. I'm like, didn't really know. Everybody said she was crazy. Nobody ever really explained any of what that meant to me as a kid. Nobody ever explained shit. We didn't talk about feelings. We didn't talk about nothing. We were just, everything's fine. So, and that's how most of my childhood was. My dad was a functioning addict, if you want to use the terms. He held multiple jobs, paid all his bills, did all his things, but he was never there. He's either busy drinking, doing his thing, or out working on the road. I did get a lot of good things from my father, not the drinking habit, but his work ethic. So, and I learned how to show up for work, no matter what. So today I still do that, I just don't have to do it hungover, So going into that, that was always hard. And I got divorced when I was 2. So I'm also from Michigan, by the way, I'm not from here originally. So that was a difficult time. I don't really remember any of it. My grandparents ended up taking custody of me on my dad's side. So we went through that, and they ended up raising me. My grandparents were great people. So they didn't do drugs, they didn't drink, they didn't party, they just went to church, did their thing, and gave their life to the community. So my grandmother was a saintly human being. And a lot of people will say that about their grandmas, but like this lady gave everything to the community and showed up in an area that she didn't have to go to. She just stayed in the hood doing things. I'm like, what are you doing? So I get it now. I do. And it was a beautiful thing, and I grew up around it. I didn't really know what it was. I didn't understand what going and helping at soup kitchens were and doing all these things that I thought was actually kind of horrible. I was like, why do I want to be here? As a kid, you don't quite get all that stuff. So about 15, 16, somewhere in there, she got diagnosed with terminal breast cancer, stage 4. I had already started dabbling in kind of our starter drugs. As I like to refer to them, the marijuana and the drinking. I will be drug specific at occasions. I will try not to do that. If you're triggered, you got like a whole room full of people. So I'll just get with somebody. I will not get into details, that's for sure. So I had already started partying a little. I didn't know what to do with this pain. I had no idea. Here's this motherly figure who's done everything for me, who I'm watching die. And I'm like, what do I do with this? Nobody taught me what to do with that. Nobody ever talked to me. Nobody ever sat me down and said, hey man, how you feeling? You okay? And I would have been like, no, I'm not. You're watching my mother die pretty much. And when I would use it, made it hurt a little less. You know, and then I found all these prescriptions that she was prescribing. She wasn't taking them, and they gave her ass load of shit. And I found out when I took one of those, I really didn't feel much. So, and I started a very heavy opiate addiction, like right from Jump Street. So we went right to like high-powered synthetic opiates, and I'm surprised I'm alive through that shit. So now we just take them over and over and over and over and over. Every time the pain came back up, every time I thought, she's at home dying, I just throw some shit on top of it, man. And I didn't go home most of the time. And by this time, I'm starting to get in legal trouble. I'm starting to fucking show up to school wasted. And I think we went to 8th grade and completely fucking hammered one time, drinking Bacardi 151 at the bus stop. Not a good idea. My buddy almost died. It was a bad day in school. You know, and you're not supposed to show up to school like that. Did anybody ever sit me down and talk to me about that? Did anybody ever say, hey, you might have a problem? Would it have done any good? Shit, I don't know. I don't know if it would have, but I think today I would have been grateful. Somebody at least was like, hey man, you know, you're covering up something. I don't know what it is. I was angry for a long time because nobody did sit me down. Nobody sat them down. Nobody knew. A bunch of people not knowing. We're trying to figure it out as we go along. So back to the consistent using. So by this time, I'm waking up in the morning to go to school and doing a bunch of opiates. So I'm doing them all day, all night, nonstop. I didn't know what opiate withdrawal was. Doesn't tell you on the bottle, by the way. If you keep taking these for a while, you're gonna feel like shit when you stop. So I found out what that was, and I was like, this is no fun. It's no fun at all. And eventually, my grandmother passed. And I can still remember the day I went and seen her in the hospital, and I knew it was going to be that day, and everybody knew it was going to be that day. And I remember going in there and seeing all these tubes and all this shit, and I'm like, I don't want to fucking be in here, you know? And then I remember leaving and going out to this little table at whatever hospital that was, and just getting high. So, because that's the only thing I knew to do. It's the only answer I had for anything. Fortunately, that was going to be my answer for everything for about the next 20 years. That was the real start of it, though, when it got really heavy. And I didn't know what to do. I had no idea what to do about my pain. So, and she passed away that day. And that was also the start of the shame and guilt to my using. Because instead of being in there with her, I was out there trying to cover up my own pain. So I was just incapable of being in that setting. So she passed away. Things only got worse, obviously. The hardest thing that I can remember was them packing up all of her stuff and my aunt carrying this bag of all the drugs. And I was like, oh, fuck, what am I gonna do? Here's this giant bag. It was like she was carrying my life. And they were going to dispose of them like they're properly supposed to do. They're not addicts. You know, my aunt's a reverend. So, I didn't know what to do. I knew I wanted to tackle her and take all the drugs. Because I was like, shit. So, what am I going to do now? Where am I going to get all these things? And I didn't realize up until moments like that I was an addict. You know, because my every being, my every moment was right there in that fucking Ziploc bag. So after that was gone, I started venturing out into the world to go find my fixes. It didn't take long, and I think I was 17 by that time, and I was already using IV heroin. So it was went real quick and in a fucking hurry. So, and that's how addiction works. I told you it was progressive. You know, it starts out as fun, then we get a little fun and misery, and eventually I'll tell you about the pure fucking misery that ends up happening. Yeah, there's nothing pretty about IV drug use, if any of y'all know anything about it. So, very quickly I caught a lot of cases. And I caught them for stealing shit from people who were like my family. So, throughout all the years of addiction, I talk about how I got these charges. And like, I stole my grandpa's shit. So, like, I wasn't cool. I stole his generator one day. It was a big, huge, giant generator, and I knew I was going to get caught. Took it to the pawn shop, the whole 9 yards. Got some charges out of that one. That was my first felony. I think that was the only one. So that's pretty cool. there was a lot. I stole things from him that I'll never be able to replace. So I stole a saxophone that he got in France while he was in the Navy. That shit stings when you start doing step work. So that shit stings when you gotta go making amends. But thank God for the steps and the fact that I got to go tell him that amends before he passed away. I got lucky there, because we don't all get that chance. So we went through all that. I started getting incarcerated. I remember the first time going to jail, I was like 16, 17, somewhere around there. I remember driving past the juvie, and I was like, and they were like, nope, you're going to big boy jail. I said, oh, fuck. So I was not prepared for big boy jail, nor am I still prepared for big boy jail. It is not where Kevin is supposed to spend his existence. I do not do well with that kind of shit. So they sat me in there, and that was more traumatic than it ever was helpful. So I got out, and I thought, well, I'm a badass now. So we're just going to keep doing what we do. Not long after that did I figure out that if I took this many of whatever I liked and got rid of this many of them, I could get these for free. So, and this started a very long career with selling narcotics. So that I'd say is just as hard to kick as the drugs are. It really is, because it's a lifestyle where it's just quick money. Everybody likes you, you get all this approval, things are good, women come and go, and it's just like, it's the bee's knees up until it's not. Up until you're waiting for the fucking door to get kicked in all the time. It gets really old. And you're watching people get life sentences or murdered when you get to them. So things get really real quick out there. So I find myself dealing, hustling, doing all this shit. And by this time, I'm taking care of a guy who's paralyzed from the neck down. I'm not even 18 years old, and I'm doing this shit. I got somebody else signing the check over to me. And a lot of people would be like, that's so sweet of you to take care of a quadriplegic. And I was like, nah, we smoke crack together. Because that's what we fucking do as addicts. I made money and I did things with him that I shouldn't have been doing at 17 years old. He was like in his mid-30s and had all these people who run around Detroit. I shouldn't have been out there doing any of that shit. I knew it when I got in the car with them guys one day and we're driving around in Detroit. And I'm fucking petrified. And they're just like, it's another Tuesday, riding around doing whatever they want in this city. I'm like, man, we're gonna die. And the reality is that ain't a pretty place to go poking yourself around. So I was always scared to go there. When you would have known me using, I'd have told you how cool I was and how I used to go to the hood and cop dope. Like, I was petrified to go to the hood and cop dope. I did it because drugs made me go places I don't need to fucking be. I don't need to be down there. There's no need for me to be in 6 Mile trying to get fucking heroin. It's not a place where I'm meant to be, just the same as I'm not meant to be in a fucking prison cell. I'm really grateful for all these things, but they're also quite painful. We move on to, ending up in North Carolina. That's where I end up. So my dad ends up coming here because, he parties and he also fucks his life up too. So, and he ends up moving in with my stepmom's mom and up on Wilson's Creek, if any of y'all ever been there. So that's where I ended up. So I went from the city to get picked up at a bus stop like 20 years ago in the north and then going up to Wilson's Creek. And it was a culture shock. It really was. I was like, what the fuck? Am I doing here? I got my probation transfer here because I did have some family with a little bit of money to take care of stuff like that. By this time, I haven't spoke to my mom, and God, I couldn't even tell you how long. It was about 10 years I didn't speak to her. So I had some resentment or whatever the hell it was. So we'll get back to that. So I come to North Carolina. I'm still on felony probation. I'm up here in the middle of nowhere. I have no fucking clue what to do. But my dad stops at the beer store. And now I knew what to do. I'm supposed to drink. And I'm supposed to fuck around in the woods and get drunk. So I think I became like an official North Carolinian at that point when I just got fucked up and wandered around the woods for a while, but it didn't work out well for me. So I shortly after being there, like we normally do, you can put me anywhere and I'm gonna figure out where the shit's at. So I found a lady. She's not with us anymore. I remember going to a funeral and she OD'd. So, and that's also the reality of this disease too. So we partied and partied, and I eventually moved out. My partying got worse, and my selling drugs got worse, and I thought I was the coolest fucking thing in North Carolina, especially not being from here. So and things just got worse and worse, you know, and eventually, you know, it progressed. If you ever do step work, you're gonna see that you're a repeat serial offender, and you keep doing the same shit. So it just changed places and faces. That's all it is. It's the same behavior over and over and over and over. Now, just because you magically get into recovery and start working steps does not mean this behavior just up and disappears. So it keeps coming up, and I'm like, shit, I'm doing it again. That happens. So, and we get to work on it. That was the difference. We end up, shit, where am I now? That's fun. It's like time traveling in your head if you ever have to do this.
Yeah.
Be ready for that, because there's some painful shit in there. So, yeah. I'm in North Carolina. I've repeated these relationships. I finally end up with one that had kids with. To be honest with you, she showed up pregnant. So, obviously that was not mine. But I raised him. So, and he's still my child to this day. I didn't have the greatest decision-making skills, obviously. If you show up at my house and you're pregnant, and I'm like, come on in. So these aren't the brightest things, and I don't think I would do that today. I'm grateful I did. A lot came out of it. We had another child later on, so we used the entire time. Both of those kids came out addicted to narcotics. So we went in and out of methadone clinics. We went in and out of trying to move to Massachusetts to get off of drugs, which probably wasn't the brightest place to go to. So for two opiate addicts, to go near Boston was not a good idea. But it's where she was from. So I disappeared up there, you know, did some landscaping and hung out. Her mom's also, well, I'm gonna call her an addict. It's up to her what she wants to call herself, but we did a lot of drugs together, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, and there was a lot going on in all those years. And eventually, I got introduced to methamphetamines, and that was a fucking turning point. It was probably the scariest shit I'd ever been through. So I started using it IV, and it was a whole nother fucking world, and it would send me into psychosis. Every single time. I tried for 6 months to figure out a combination where I could successfully use this shit without it going completely sideways. Here I am, I got 2 kids, I've got a mortgage for a house, I got car payments, I'm living, if you see me on Facebook, I was doing great. So, I had all the things, had a job, I drove heavy equipment and tractor trailers and shit, coming to work, gone. Like, completely loaded out of my mind and paranoid, freaked out. It was one of the scariest moments, I'd say, in my life, up until this last rodeo. But I finally went to HR and told them I got a problem. And I'd love to tell you that's how the conversation went, was I got a problem. Woo! I was spun. So I let loose everything. You know, people were after me in one of these things, and there's fucking drugs in my hair gel, and he was like, okay. And the weirdest thing was, he looks at me and goes, all right, we got 2 options. And I'm like, oh, fuck, you don't want to give a drug addict too many options. He said, we can act like this didn't happen. And I was like, oh, okay. So I was pretty fucking high, but I ain't dumb. So I was like, I'm going to walk out of here, you're going to give me a drug test. He said, well, we can't just give you a drug test. I'm like, go, no, make your phone call. Call the other person, that was the thing, and pull the trigger on this. So they sent me home, and they gave me partial disability and told me to see a psychiatrist. That's not going to be enough for an addict. So I held off, and I went into his office, fucking spun again, thinking he was calling the FBI and sending emails to everybody. Thank God he sent me somewhere, because I told him, man, you gotta fucking send me somewhere. Like, I couldn't even imagine what I looked like, pouring sweat and crawling up the fucking walls. I mean, to the point where he said, you can leave your car here, and you can just get a cab home. I wandered around for like 15 minutes after that. Lenore didn't have a cab service at that time, so I don't know what I was doing. And I remember I was going to get a flight. There was like, I thought about getting a plane flight, and I'm like, they're not letting you on the plane right now. I was like, I don't even know if you have a valid ID to do that, sir. So I had financial means, that was about it. So eventually he got me into a place, and I can still remember calling there and asking if they had a bed available, and they said yes. I said, all right. I went back and got my car. I'd come down and look. I still didn't need to be driving. And my thought was, I will collect up a bunch of booze and all the things I need, and I will drive. They sent me to Galax in Virginia because they didn't want me at Black Mountain because they said that was too close to home and I might disappear or walk away, which was true. So, good for them. And I was going to drive to Virginia, fucking spun, and drink the entire time till I got there. That was my amazing plan that Kevin's able to come up with on his own. Thank God I called them back and they said, you know what? We don't have a bed available, but come on in the morning. We got you. I went home. You know, that was God doing for me what I couldn't do for myself. Myself was going to, I probably got spun out, lost in Virginia somewhere. And I've been out in backwood places in West Virginia and Virginia, and I don't want to be lost there. It's scary. It's a whole nother world. I'd rather be in the hood. I'll tell you what, at least I know what they're going to do. So, at least don't take my money. So, man, that was wild. And I remember my kid's grandmother taking me there. And I've been up for days. So, and I can remember that before I left, I was going to start drinking, and I figured I'd drink all the way there. And I poured out this beer and told her she could have the rest of them. Something in that moment changed. I was like, man, this ain't working. You know, and I got the treatment, and I was still spun. I thought they were coming to get me. The feds were coming. I almost took off running because I hit an ATM and grabbed a pocket full of cash before I went in there because I'm not getting stuck anywhere. I still don't like being stuck anywhere. So, and I was like, I'll just take off if I need to. And I was going to run, and I was like, you're in the middle of Virginia. You don't even know where the fuck you are. Where are you going to run to? You know, but I'd already figured out where the bus station was in town. I already figured out where the nearest beer store was. So between those two things and a pocket full of cash, the drug addict's pretty much good to go. So I could just go off on a little mission. And I had surrendered at that moment and said, I'll just stay. 2 weeks into being there, I remember I was going to leave, and there was a counselor that just, sometimes you need a counselor who's going to tell you, sit down and shut the fuck up. So I don't always, and I'm not that counselor. I'm not great at being that person. I'm like, have a good time. I'll see you when you come back. No, with love. Yeah. So, and she said, you want to get high? I said, man, I want to see my kids. She said, no, you want to get high. It's all over your face. I said, no, I want to see my kids. She said, okay. You want to see your kids and you want to get high. And I was like, well, she's like, you can leave, you know? And I chose not to. And I'm so grateful I chose not to. I'd love to tell you that's where my using ended. It didn't. But probably should have. And I got introduced to 12-step meetings in there. I never knew which one I was supposed to go to. They had an AA meeting and they had an NA meeting. And I didn't know which one I was supposed to go to because I drank religiously and I did a fucking bunch of narcotics too at the same time. So I'm like, whoa. So I wandered into both of them and I liked them both. And I was like, all right. And I always felt like it was like I was that child with the divorced parents, and I wasn't sure one was mad. I was at the other one. They're like, oh, you're out over there, fucking drinkers and drug addicts. And it's like I was always in the wrong room. I fought that for years and years and years and years and years in here. I allowed that to take me back out. That has absolutely nothing to do with any of the fellowships. That's on me. Eventually, I figured out what my recovery is. So what that looks like for me. I found other people who also dealt with things that were similar to that. So I remember there was a guy in there who gave me basically a hand-wrote meeting list of where all the AA meetings were in Lenore, because we didn't really have a whole lot of other shit to have. I got this little list, and I get out, and I'm like, I guess I'll go. So, and I'd like to tell you that I had this wonderful place to come back to. I told the kid's grandma to leave. I let the kid's mom stay and her boyfriend in the basement. This is slightly traumatic shit to do to yourself while they're getting high and selling dope. So I dealt with that shit for about 6 months. So I remember going to the police trying to have him removed, and if you know anything about being an addict, that's completely out of character for us. So, and they wanted to set up surveillance cameras and who they got their people from, and I'm like, buddy, that's not what I'm here for. I'm here so you don't seize my house, is what I'm trying to do. It didn't work out. So I ended up with Department of Social Services involved in my life. They removed them, and things went to what I thought was normal. So I started caring for I had my brother. I took custody of my brother by this time too. So 3 kids, full-time job, whole house. The only thing I knew how to do was go to work and get drunk. So this was like a whole nother world. I got a whole new realization of what moms go through. So I got to understand what that was, and I'd like cry myself to sleep every night. I was like, so, and eventually, without the support that I needed to do that, I wasn't able to do it. And I called somebody up, and I had a couple of drinks, you know, and that turned into a couple of toasts of this, and next thing you know, I had people in my house again, around my kids again, and I'm rolling the bowl again, and I'm like, oh fuck. And then DSS shows up, and imagine that, because they are involved in my life, and remove these children. So I used to say they took my kids. The reality is I gave them my kids. So I made choices and things happened because of that. That is not to throw shade on myself at the same time, but it's me to own what happened. So, and that was a very difficult moment. Still implanted in my brain is that day of them removing that. So seeing them get drug off is not a thing you want to really see and or feel. So, and I still have to deal with that. You know, sitting up here right this exact moment, I can feel that. And that's one of the difficult things about telling a story. So sometimes you don't think about a lot of this shit until you do it. Needless to say, I got my shit back together at that moment because, you know, there was consequences, and that's usually what we do. Somewhere in those consequences, I decided to stop using again. Went through all the things. At this point, I'm losing my home. So because I used to work 60 to 80 hours and I used to sell dope. So that's how I was paying my bills. Now I'm working 40 hours, this and that and the other. I think I lost my job by then. I don't even know. So my house is getting foreclosed now. Once my kids weren't there, I said, fuck it. I'm just going to let everybody move in. And I'm going to start a halfway house. I'm going to let you know, now that I know how halfway houses work, they vet people before they come in and they make sure they're drug free. So what this turned into was a safe injection site, which is not legal in the state of North Carolina. But holy shit, that was a long 6 months. So, but I felt like I was really helping people. I mean, I don't know if I did or didn't help people in that 6 months. What I do know is I kept a lot of needles off the streets. Unfortunately, I took a lot of abuse through that, whether that be physical, emotional. I was arrested on multiple occasions, beaten and left for dead on a couple occasions. You start letting gangs in and shit gets real. I don't regret it, but I'll never do that again. So that was some scary shit. Eventually, the police said every time we show up here, we're gonna arrest you. Every fucking time. And I was like, seems like it's probably time for me to go. So I rolled out and called them and said, hey, there's still a bunch of people in that house. Good luck. So, and after that, it wasn't my problem. So I was homeless for a while. You know, I'm in recovery still through this point. I had people, I didn't realize what I was doing to some of the people in the program. I had friends of mine who said they would come pick me up from that house and drop me off and pray that I would be alive for the next fucking week. And I didn't think of that in my head. I'm like, well, shit, they're just giving me a ride all night. So, I still know those people. So I get to see their kids get raised, you know? And that's something recovery offers us. Yeah, so I end up homeless by this time. That's not a fun place to be in recovery. So, but if it wasn't for meetings, like that's the only thing that gave me a purpose. I'd wake up and I'd be like, that 8 o'clock meeting. So, and I'd spend all day just walking around. It was also one of the most freeing moments of my life. I didn't have shit else to do. It was the first time in my entire life I didn't have any responsibilities. The kids were gone. I had no job. I didn't know what it was like to not have a job from the age of like 16. I didn't hustle no more. I just wander around and look at people's flowers and shit and pick flowers and doodle. So, and I got back into artwork again. Somewhere in between that crazy house and that point. So, and I would just sit out and have a good time. So, but if it wasn't for meetings, that good time would have changed. A good time would have turned into a real dark time, so I put up for my system. As living homeless, there's going to be some people doing some things around you. I can still remember my buddy. He said, man, I told your dad if you can stay clean here, you can stay clean anywhere. I said, why the fuck would you tell him that? So, unfortunately, he recently passed. passed away. You know, that's something that happens in this program. Yeah. We go through all that fun stuff. I get locked up eventually for child support. Thank God, because it got real cold. Anybody who's ever made it through the winter on that, I give you mad props, because I did not. I did not make it through the winter. So I got locked up. It was the most unsure I ever was, because I didn't know where I was going, what I was going to do, how I was going to live. And I'm like, what the fuck? But I still wanted out. So, and I remember them like reviewing my case every 30 days. And the first 30 days, they were like, did you come up with that money? And I was like, how the fuck would I have done that? I'm in a jail cell. It blew my mind. And I think I told them to go fuck themselves, which was not a bright idea. So, because that went to the court, and they were not happy about that. I'm going to tell you, the next review, 60 days in and 90 days in, go fuck yourself was not a thing coming out of my mouth. I was like, hey, do we have something that we could work outside out here? Because I don't like jail. I'm not a fan of it. I'm very grateful that most of that I was in solitary confinement for. We kept getting in trouble and kept doing stupid shit, which was fine with me. I'd rather be locked down with a pen and some paper to doodle and a book to read than be in the middle of general population. It's not the place for me. I have a lot of unnecessary trauma in there. So I get out and I don't know what I'm going to do. So if you know where Caldwell County Jail is, you know that RHA is nearby there. So I went up there, I had this little broken ass phone, half taped in, you know, and I was like, they got Wi-Fi. So and I go up there, and I had gone to IOP groups there for years. You know, knew the teacher. The teacher's husband was my sponsor for a while. So I go up there, and somebody just happens to pull in, and they said, hey, we got group. Come to group. You know, thank God for a place that'll let me in without needing all the papers and all the, come on, you know, let me in the door, and I hang out. They say, hey, there's a meeting afterwards. Okay. So I went to the meeting afterwards. Next thing you know, this lady comes up and says, hey, Chris is going to be out in the parking lot. Okay. There's my sponsor out in the parking lot. Told me to get in the car. I said, all right. At this point, I don't know what the hell am I doing anyways. We're driving down the road, and he said, ma'am, I'm going to get you in the Caldwell house. I said, all right. He said, what I need you to do is I need you to stay there for 9 months. And I said, man, I don't think I can do 9 months. And he stopped the car, middle of the street. It was like training day, for Christ's sake. He's like, get the fuck out of my car then. And I was like, damn. So he's like, 9 months or get the fuck out of my car. And he was a very straight up human being. I said, all right, I'll do 9 months. In my head, I was like, I'm out in 3. I'll just owe one of my meds. It'll be fine. So I go to the halfway house. I spent a year there because if you know anything about getting your life back together, it takes a while. So, and I'm so grateful for a place that taught me how to live my life and not use it at the same time. Because I thought I knew what I was doing, but I'd never done it without using it. So I might have paid I didn't pay no bills. Somebody else was paying the bills. I just went to work. So I didn't do my own laundry, I didn't do my own dishes, I didn't do my own shit, I didn't know how to do any of that consistently. So, and I learned to have a routine there. I learned to wake up and read my meditation and go to a meeting and go to work and do this stuff and become a productive member of society. So, and honestly, the guy who ran the place got me the job. So I remember coming in and he's like, you got a resume? I said, yeah, that's what I'm carrying with me. Yeah, no. And he's like, you worked before? I was like, yeah. He's like, all right, computer's over there. And it was up to me. You know, he said, I got you an interview, but you need to have a resume ready. So he gave me the opportunity if I was willing to put in work. And that's the majority of what I've learned from recovery. It'll all be there for you if you're willing to put the work in. So I spent all this time there, and it was wonderful. I ended up working night shift. I don't think they let you do that at halfway houses. And it was through COVID. So like we had nobody coming in and out. We were on curfew anyway, so I was like, oh, y'all on curfew. I'm on curfew anyway. So it was a good time. And I stayed up most nights in this big giant ass house just painting, drawing, getting to know myself, listening to music. It was kind of, I'm easy to isolate. So my whole childhood, you know, it's been just me. So nobody ever talked to me, like I said, about my feelings, so I was pretty used to that. I could just find something to do. So that was interesting. I can remember moving out into this apartment that I still live in to this day. One of these damn days I'll get enough money to get the fuck out of there, but I love it there at the same time. Needless to say, a person in the program. once again, it's always somebody in these gym programs is helping me. So, my sponsor said, hey, call so-and-so, they might know where a place is. I said, man, I ain't got no car, I ain't got no... He said, you drive a company car. By this time, I'm working for my sponsor. I forgot to say, this is my first Pierce Point job. It was a wild ride. Yeah, so he gave me a car, you know, all the things I needed, take care of that. The lady was like, you don't need a down payment, I'm just going to let you in, because she's a sweet lady. She really is. She works at one of the women's TV shelters. So you end up in a circle, not by accident, you know? So I moved in there, and I can still remember like the first night by myself, and I had no idea. I had never been alone in my life. Well, not on drugs. So I didn't really know what to do. But the one thing I did know, I go to a meeting. It's always there. I always go to a meeting. By this time, I'd been in a couple of different fellowships. So I got all these options. I could just go wherever. So I would do that. And I went to work. And I worked for him, and it was a very toxic relationship between me and him at this point. Because he was my sponsor and my boss, which gets a little messy if you don't know how to navigate that. I don't know if he did, but I know I did not know how to navigate that. He was also a little bunch. So I learned a whole lot about how to work with people and how to not work with people. More so on how to be a better boss and a better person that helps other peer sports and other people in what not to do. Not to be like you. He taught me a lot of amazing things that I still carry to this day, but he also taught me a lot of painful shit. And there was a lot of traumatic things I went through there, and I watched him, for the most part, I'm pretty sure cheat on his wife. And I didn't know what to do, so I knew his wife too. I was like, fuck. I had no idea what to do in this moment. Eventually I blew up, because I didn't know how to have conversations, didn't know what to do with my emotions. I remember kicking in the door and cussing him out and telling him I was going to do X, Y, and Z. And he just sat there with the straightest face I'd ever seen in my life, which pissed me off more. So I was like, get up and fight me, fucker. He wouldn't do it. He was good. He was good though. So I ended up leaving there. So I know how to destroy my life a lot of different ways and just use them. So at this point, I don't know what to do. So I get into a relationship. That seemed like a right thing to do. I had avoided those in recovery at all costs. They said, man, wait a year. I said, okay. So, and I had a grand sponsor who told me he waited 2 years. And I said, okay, I want to be like him. I made it about 18 months, and I picked the first fucking person I could find. And it was not a great choice. So, there was so many red flags, it was like a carnival. But I thought I'd get on the ride, and I'd check it out. So, I know absolutely nothing about myself still at this point, but I think I can, heal myself with somebody else. That is a pattern of mine. I get her pregnant within like a week. So yeah, we stop using, we get fertile. So now it's pretty fucked up. I did not know what to do, and I thought at first, okay, I'm gonna do it right this time. Both of my other kids were born addicted to drugs, and their mom's still out running the gun at this point. She's fucking catching mad felonies, doing all kinds of crazy shit. So I'm like, this will be alright. This will be cool. I'm gonna finally do this family thing. This is an idea of mine that I've been attached to my entire life. Ever since I was a small child, my parents got divorced. This idea of a family. So I'm like, I'm gonna be that person. I'm gonna do it. A little while into it, she just starts, whoop. And I also start getting a little whoop too. And things go sideways. And I'm like, what the fuck? And she just packs up and moves out. I don't know what to do with that. I have no clue with that. I once again had this idea of a family shattered. And that has happened over and over and over and over in my lifetime. And continues to happen in recovery, unfortunately. What I did was put dope on top of it. Eventually, I drank a bunch of cough syrup. I still remember calling my sponsor and telling him, I drank cough syrup. He said, Kevin, we're allowed to drink cough syrup. I said, no, I drank cough syrup. And he's like, did you drink it with the intent to get high? I said, yeah, we took about 6 or 8 shots in a row. He's like, yep, that's a relapse, but he's like, we're going to need to come pick up a white chip. So in this process, I don't really know what to do. She ends up pregnant with twins, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna do about this. I look at the job I have, I look at the situation I'm in, and I'm like, I can't do this. I can't show up for 2 kids. I don't have the means to do that. What it's gonna do is it's gonna stick me in a position where we all end up broke, and it doesn't stop. And I'm gonna have a resentment against these 2 kids. And I know what I'm gonna do with that resentment. I'm gonna put drugs and fucking alcohol on top of it. So I made the conscious choice to have them adopted, which is one of, not the most, but one of the most painful things I've ever done in recovery. So I didn't use through that whole time. I was pretty fucking angry for quite a while. So it's still something I deal with to this day. There's a lot of fun therapy that comes along with things. So, yeah. I didn't even know if I wanted to say that part in this part, because I know there's people in here who have been adopted. You know, and it can be triggered. And then you're gonna transfer that anger on me. And you're welcome to do that, you know? Made choices I made for reasons that are important to me, and I accept. I didn't use throughout all that part. We ended up going on, and I don't know, there's a bunch of different relapses in between here. My disease loves to use anything it can against me. So every time I get an education, and I start learning speech therapy, and I think I can apply this, and I can figure out how to use successfully, I'm gonna tell you, I know a lot of shit about addiction. I know an endless smorgasbord of shit about addiction. Like, I can sit up here and rattle off all kinds of shit. I can sound super wonderfully smart, tell you all the neuroscience and all the various. I didn't know much about recovery. Recovery is pretty fucking simple. So it's really not that difficult. So it's if I make it complicated, if you meet at that point. So what I'm supposed to do, show up, go to meetings, have a sponsor, work steps, reach out to other addicts, and the rest of the shit will fall into place from there. For me, that's not the end of it. I found that isn't, those things alone won't do it for me. So, and I had found yoga along the way, and was like, this is pretty cool. You know, and in the very beginning, like everything else, there was some lady involved, and I was like, I'll show her. It has been the most helpful thing in my life. I quit using it for a couple of years, and my life went sideways. And I ended up depressed again. This last go round, the depression led to a place of pretty close to suicide. So I really debated it, more so than I ever had my entire life. So that was the closest I'd ever been. I picked up, I started using again. So I'm still just showing up to meetings. I'm a fucking drug counselor showing up high. Running IOP groups, a little high, just a little. So, because I was, dialing it in. Give it about another couple of fucking months, I'd have been sheeped up in the bathroom and coming in and telling y'all how to recover. So, it's not an easy thing to try to work your way through. Eventually, it led right back to me shooting up, because that's where it always goes, every time. That was a scary fucking day. So I remember doing some, being good, if you want to call it that, and still having more, and doing it. I don't know what the fuck was in that shit. Fuck, Lord, was that scary. I don't know what happened. I remember pouring sweat and realizing I'm probably gonna die. And I remember reaching for a crisis card. I didn't even know where the phone was. I had no fucking clue. So I got this little crisis card clenched in my hand, pouring sweat, trying to breathe through it, thinking, this is it. You're gonna die right here in your apartment alone. Nobody's even gonna know. I was on vacation. I was supposed to be going on vacation. This is what we do before we head out for vacation. We get really fucking high. Obviously I didn't really want to be on my vacation. So I realized I have a phone full of numbers. I mean, I've been to fellowships in all the surrounding counties and places. They probably got 100 fucking phone numbers. Why ain't I using them? Why ain't I calling anybody? Why am I going to die here on my fucking living room floor alone? My poor cat. That's all I got. Poor Gary. He can't call nobody. He's a good cat, but he can't call nobody. So I did the one thing I knew was to call somebody and ask them to sponsor me. So I can barely speak once I get really high on meth. I don't know if any of y'all ever have that problem, like little words. And I remember calling him, and wasn't quite ready to tell him everything. And I was like, well, I've been doing a little drinking and all of this. He's like, all right, well, at least you ain't shot no dope. And I'm like, motherfucker. And I wasn't ready to be like, so, and I was like, he's like, all right, I'm going. He works out of town a lot. So he's like, call me in the morning. I'll be up about 6 a.m. And I'm thinking, so will I. So I spent about the next 5 fucking days wide awake. Really bored too. So I called him in the morning. And I said, man, I did. That's what I did. And he was like, well, we're getting honest. And that's the start of it. We get honest. And I realized I've been fucking around in this program for so long that I about ended up dead. I started applying what I already know works. I started calling him. Started working a step. We've been taking it pretty slow. It's also like third time through them. So maybe we'll figure some more things out this time. And honestly, this is the second go around on the first step, and you gotta wonder why I keep getting paused on the first step, because it's the one I just couldn't manage to get right. I'm the one who thinks I can manage my life and use. So there's a reason God stops me on the most important step, the only one that I have to figure out how to work every day. The rest of them, they kind of come with it. Every time I start using, I start working them backwards. It's not good. So I'm still there, I'm still working on that. And surrender is still a part of my life, and it has to be every single day. It's not something I get to take a vacation from. It's not that I get to wake up and be like, well, I'll probably smoke a little something. I can't. So, and it's difficult because I do move within inside of an art community and within inside of a yoga community. And those two communities, not everybody doesn't put substances in their body. So I need 12-step communities to remind Kevin, you can't use this successfully, you will die. That is what's going to happen. Your art, your yoga, all that other shit will fly out the window, buddy. It'll be gone. So, getting back into yoga, though, was probably the most healing thing I've done. I had a friend of mine, once again, in the program, walk me into a studio. I had yet to be in a yoga studio because I have all these fears. And I went in there, and I felt like I was at home. I felt like being at a meeting again. It's a place where I can show up and truly be me on that mat. So, and I don't know why. I'm freer there than I am most of the time in a meeting. So, it's one of the few places I can just feel emotions. Just sit there and cry. And it's wild, the shit that can come out of you in doing something so simple. So, and the people I meet in there are so beautiful. And they're such caring and kind humans. And all I have to do is let them know Kevin can't microdose mushrooms or he will fucking die. So, good for y'all. I hope you go on an ayahuasca journey, but I don't need to. My journey's right there on that mat. Because if not, I end up in some really fucked up places. So, I found myself on Father's Day in there doing some yoga and getting acupuncture. And I'm like, I remember laying there and getting this sudden realization that I used to smoke crack in trailers. And I'm like, you're in a yoga studio getting acupuncture. And then I'm going to leave there, and I went to Charlotte to go paint a mural. Like, that's what my life looks like in recovery. If not, I end up back getting high in my apartment by myself till I destroy that shit. So it's just what it is. That's okay. Recovery is a beautiful thing. And getting to go out there and do stuff like that. I never painted in front of a bunch of people. That was epically weird. I have a lot of issues with being vulnerable, which might seem weird because you guys got a camera pointed at me recording me right now. But doing that, that's a private thing for me. So that was the first time I was ever willing to just get out there. And there's all these little teenage kids having a solstice party, because it happened to be solstice at the time. And they're just dancing around. It was like a little rave. And I'm like, fuck. And I just got to be free. And what they taught me was they were being free. This is the generation that isn't held back by a lot of shit. So I was like, you can paint freely just the same way. You don't have to follow anything. You can just be, and I sat there with a friend and just got to be. And it was very, very spiritual, very open, very nervous too. Similar to this kind of stuff, And I don't know what tomorrow will bring. I really don't. But I'm really grateful that as long as I keep remembering that first step and that I can't use, that it can bring me whenever I want. I had a guy tell me once, you can do anything you want in this world besides use. And I get that. I really can. You know? You go into the going back to school and doing all the things and all the lovely acclimates that come along with recovery if you wanted to. For a long time I strived for the fucking degree hanging on the wall and all this shit. I don't fucking really care that much anymore. So I hope they end up on the wall still. I kind of do, just because I want to help people. That's the only thing that's still pushing me to finish all this stuff, and that I can start something and finish it. And I will graduate here like in the fall. So I never thought I'd do that. I dropped out in 9th grade. So yeah, I dropped out very early on. Not due to a lack of intelligence, but due to the fact that I thought it was way more fun to drop out. And I'll be 100% honest with you, it was. It was way more fun to go get high and sell drugs than it was to go to school. So the reality was it was not a long-term good choice. So I still don't care for school. I really don't. It really drives me insane. And I know you're teaching over there, but so it's a lot sometimes, you know, and it's very stressful. And trying to learn how to manage all this shit is a lot. But I'm really grateful, and I'm grateful to all my predecessors to keep continuing to teach me how to do this shit. That's all I got.
Thank
Nice
you.
job,
Thank
Tim.
you.